Hey there, welcome back to Pepper Geek. In today's video, I'll be talking all about disease-resistant pepper varieties. So, pepper plant diseases are no fun and they can affect you pretty much anywhere in the world. Now, some regions may suffer more than others, but regardless of where you live, it's a pretty good idea to plan out your garden with a few disease-resistant cultivars that you can rely on to give you good harvests. So in this video, I'll talk about why disease resistance matters and some of the common pepper plant diseases to look out for. And I'll talk about several specific pepper varieties that are disease resistant, some of which will actually be growing this year. If you want more information about disease resistant peppers, we have an article on Pepper Geek, which I'll link below. It has links to all of the different seed varieties where you can purchase them online, and some additional resources with many more pepper varieties to browse. Before I get started, if you're growing anything besides peppers, you should subscribe to our other channel, Geeky Greenhouse. We just posted a video over there about how we made our seed starting shelf, which we'll be using to germinate pepper seeds and grow our seedlings indoors. So if you're interested in fun gardening projects like that and other crops, check out Geeky Greenhouse in the description below. Okay, so why is disease resistance important? Well, the obvious one is nobody wants diseased plants. You don't want to go out into your garden where you've been putting all of this time and effort only to find your plants covered in brown spots and falling over. Not every disease is going to kill your plants, but most of them will hinder the overall yield from your peppers. Now, this is especially important in commercial settings where people are really relying on their crops to make a living, and many home gardeners rely on their crops for their food as well. So at the end of the day, disease-resistant varieties are going to give you a much higher likelihood of having a successful crop. So I recommend planting at least a couple disease-resistant types, just so that you have at least one or two plants that you can count on. And of course, there's still no guarantee that your plants are going to grow perfectly. It's always best to do your own experimenting and find out which plants grow best for you where you're located. Okay, so let's start off with some of the common pepper plant diseases, many of which we have seen over the years growing peppers. First off is bacterial leaf spot. You'll see this pretty often and pretty widespread, but it's very common here in the Northeast, also in Southeast America. Basically, this causes dark spots on the foliage and sometimes even on the fruits, which can impact your overall yields and usable fruits. We've also seen a lot of cucumber mosaic virus and tobacco mosaic virus, along with anthracnose, pepper mottle virus, and potato virus Y. Now, there are many different viruses and bacterial infections that can impact your plants, and it can be really difficult to diagnose exactly which disease has affected your plants. So what I recommend doing is looking into which diseases are prevalent in your region. So when it comes to specific varieties, for the most part, you're going to be finding that disease-resistant peppers are hybrid varieties, F1 hybrids, and so you're going to have to go to pretty official, legitimate seed sellers like Johnny Seeds, to find those cultivars. And the reason for this is that plant breeders are specifically hybridizing peppers to find those disease-resistant traits and breed them into new varieties. Now, some people shy away from hybrid varieties, but it really doesn't bother me. I know that at the end of the day, plant breeding is really something that's natural, but is being done in a controlled environment. There are drawbacks to buying hybrid seeds. They are more expensive typically because there are more resources going into creating the hybrid seeds, and you can't save seeds from your peppers at the end of the season. You have to use seeds from a seed packet, and that leads to higher costs as well. Okay, so with that, let's get into some of the disease-resistant varieties, and I'll start with a few bell pepper varieties. Now, there are a ton of different disease-resistant bells, so whatever color, whatever size you want, whatever region you're in, you'll definitely be able to find something that works for you. So first, I want to talk about the Ninja S10 hybrid. This is a red bell pepper that we'll be growing this year, and it resists all of the bacterial leaf spot races 0 through 10, along with tobacco mosaic virus. Bacterial leaf spot, like I said, has been a major issue for us, especially with bell peppers. Some of the heirlooms that we've grown here in the past in Connecticut have pretty consistently come down with bacterial leaf spot, and that really hinders our overall yield from bell peppers. So I'm excited to see how this and others will work out. Super heavyweight is a huge yellow bell pepper variety with disease resistance for potato virus Y and tobacco mosaic virus. So two pretty important diseases depending on where you live. But I'm mostly excited to grow some yellow bells that have the potential to be huge. There are claims that these can grow up to 9 ounces per pepper and high overall yields. And lastly, in the bell pepper category is another red bell called Alliance with a huge disease resistance package from cucumber mosaic virus to bacterial leaf spot to pepper mottle virus, potato virus Y, pepper yellow mosaic virus, and tobacco mosaic virus. So if you want a really broad disease resistance, Alliance is a good option. Now let's move on to some jalapeno varieties. And first off is the Goliath jalapeno, which we grew last year, and it was actually my favorite out of all 8 jalapeno varieties we tried. The official disease resistance is tobacco mosaic virus and potato virus Y, but we ran into virtually no disease problems throughout the season, and we have a lot of different things that can impact our plants. The pods on Goliath are also huge, as you would expect, and to me they just tasted perfect. They were hot and crunchy, and the walls were the perfect thickness, not too many seeds inside. Goliath is a great option. We'll definitely be growing it again. And one other jalapeno variety I'd recommend is Jalafuego. We also grew this last year and the year before that. It's a hotter jalapeno variety. It definitely has a higher heat level, but it also just produces a lot of peppers on a vigorous, large plant all throughout the season. Just a great overall jalapeno if you like it hot. Now let's talk about some other miscellaneous pepper varieties that have some disease resistance. First up is the Jimmy Nardello. This plant was a rock star in our raised bed last year. It was one of the fastest growing plants and one of the earliest to harvest out of our raised bed. And again, we saw virtually no disease problems throughout the season. Now, just as importantly, this is one of my favorite peppers for flavor this last season. It's similar to normal red bell pepper flavor, but there's just something about it that was more craveable, and I found myself just munching on them fresh out of the garden. Now, this is an heirloom variety, so there's no specific disease resistance mentioned. Heirloom varieties are not typically tested in an official manner for disease resistance, but it's pretty obvious, at least in our region, that this plant has some disease resistance. Next is the Banana Goddess. This is a hybrid F1 variety. We got seeds from Johnny Seeds. They claim bacterial leaf spot races 1 through 3 are resistant in this variety. And if you were watching us last year, you saw this plant a few times. It produces huge banana peppers. Some of them were 8 or 9 inches long and really, really thick as well. Just really impressive pods, but also, again, not really any disease problems. If you're looking for hotter varieties, you might want to try the Super Habanero, which has resistance to cucumber mosaic virus. And it's one of the few capsicum chinense varieties where I could find disease resistance, at least in an official manner. In our experience, capsicum chinense species plants tend to do pretty well at defending themselves against disease, so don't let a lack of disease resistance scare you away from planting those types. Now, the last one I want to mention is New Mex Big Jim. This is one of the hatch green chili varieties. There's no specified disease resistance here, but these hatch chilies did so well defending against diseases. Some of them even toppled over in windstorms, and so they were just sitting directly in the soil and they didn't have any disease problems. So again, like I said, it's really important to test out for yourself what works for you in your area. If you notice a specific variety just doesn't do well, it comes down with disease, pull the plant out, get it out of the garden, and move on. Try something new next year. Now, before I wrap up, I want to mention some ways that you can help reduce the chances of disease regardless of the types that you're planting. And the first is to bottom prune your plants. We have an entire video talking about bottom pruning peppers. It's something we do to virtually all of our plants. Essentially, you're just removing the foliage from the bottom 6 to 12 inches of the plant, depending on how large the plant is. And that helps prevent against soil splashing onto those leaves and introducing soil-borne pathogens. To improve this even further, mulch around the base of your plants with something like grass clippings or straw, or even compost or leaf mulch, anything to dampen the rainfall or the irrigation, and again, prevent that soil splashing. And lastly is to just use good hygiene. If you see that there is a diseased plant in your garden, it's probably a good idea to get it out of there, wash your hands, throw the plant away, and even burn it if you can to stop the spread. If you're out trimming your plants and you're going around the garden and cross-contaminating from one plant to the next, that's a common way to have your diseases spread from one plant to the other. So cleaning your tools consistently, using rubbing alcohol if you're going to be moving around the garden a lot, and even just washing your hands before you go into the garden is a great idea. So go read our article on Pepper Geek where there are more varieties that you can choose from, along with links to get seeds if you want to try some of these varieties, and I recommend you do. There's nothing more satisfying than walking out into your garden and seeing a really healthy plant, free from disease, and this is a great way to achieve that. So I hope you found this video helpful. If you have any disease-battling pepper varieties that you'd like to share, leave a comment down below. And don't forget to check out Geeky Greenhouse, our other gardening channel about all things non-pepper related, down in the description below. Thanks so much for watching Pepper Geek, and I'll see you next time. Hope you found this video helpful. If you have any disease,